empty nest to personal best. Let's fly, Mom, fly.
Welcome to another episode of the Fly Mum Fly podcast. Today, I'm so thrilled to be talking with Lori Robertson, the supervisor at Lebanon City Schools Transportation. When I arrived in the US from Australia, I was captivated by those iconic yellow school buses that I once only saw on television and thought school bus driving was an adventurous way to embrace my new community. Now, Lori joins us to reveal why bus driving can be an incredibly rewarding path for empty nesters seeking a fresh purpose in life. Hi, Lori. It's so good to have you here.
Hi, Bobby. It's so good to be here. It is so good to see you. I miss you so much.
Oh, I miss you guys too. And so just for the listeners, I was driving around Lebanon, my new town, or newish, oldish town, because I've been here for 5 years from Australia. I was driving around town maybe about a month ago, and I was thinking about empty nesters and the work that I'm doing. And I saw a bus, a school bus, and I thought, why do we not know more about it in this phase of life, that it is such a good option for, and I work mainly with empty nest mums, so I'm going to use mums a lot in this conversation, but obviously mums, dads, uncles, aunts, anyone can do this. But I was thinking to myself, why is it the case that more mums and dads aren't doing this? And I remembered the feelings and the joy that I got from this job. So I thought it's a great way to connect with you today to share facts and other perceptions about school bus driving, because I know that there are perceptions out there. I think the greatest part for me was that I came with no idea. So I didn't have any preconceived ideas about what it was about. To me, it was new, exciting, shiny, sparkling. And the greatest thing I got, Lori, from doing this job was that I was able to bring who I was into the job.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
yes.
For those people who are thinking, okay, you're sort of trying to sell it here, Bobby, can you just let us know from your perspective, because you've been in this gig for a number of years, some people might think, oh my God, like, are you serious that I'm going to jump behind a 30-foot vehicle with 40 kids and just start driving? It's actually not the case at all. Can you let listeners know how the process evolves?
Well, there is kind of a detailed process that you have to go through initially, but once that is done, it is the best job in the world. I was in sales for 12 years. I wanted a job that when my kids were off, I was off, and substitute teaching didn't pay that much, so my best friend recommended, her sister-in-law was a bus driver for 20 years, and said, you should drive. And I'm like, yeah, right. I'm going to drive a bus. But I looked into it and I've never looked back. It is the absolute best job. And nobody can understand that until they actually do it. Because you're right. It does have a negative, kind of view of it. But the process is, you apply, you come in for an interview. There are certain criteria that you do have to meet. You have to have a decent driving record. There's some things if it's in your driving record, we might not be able to hire you. And then also you have to have the background check. So there's certain things, if you've had things in your past that can prevent you from being a driver. But for the most part, it's got to be pretty severe to not be able to drive. And then you have your physical. So you have your fingerprints and your physical. Then you have to study for your CDL, for your temporary CDL, which is 4 tests that you have to take. It's general knowledge, school bus, passenger, and air brake. So there are apps. There are great apps that you can download on your phone to help you study for that. You get the CDL manual from the BMV. So once you get all that done, then we start the training process. And so we just increased our pay. We pay $15 an hour to train. We have excellent, we call them OBIs, on-bus instructors, that will work with you. They will teach you everything you need to know. And at first, it's a little daunting. It's, the pre-trip and things like that. But they take you through it step by step. And the state is actually changing the pre-trip some to make it a little bit easier and not have so much. And you're actually going to have a check sheet with you to go down, which is great. But then you start, once you get your temps, then you start the behind the wheel training. And they teach you everything and they build on everything. So, at first you think, there's no way I can drive this big bus. And then you get behind the wheel and you realize it's not that hard. It's actually, I would prefer to drive a bus than my car, as long as it's not 100 degrees like today. But there's all the mirrors, you can see everything. It's so funny because I used to train, and when I would train, the first thing a trainee would do is look over their shoulder, and it's like, you can't see anything. You have to look forward in the mirrors. But it's not what everybody thinks it is. It is, once you get that CDL and you start your driving, I mean, we make sure that when we have a brand new driver, we are always sending them with people. We're never going to put them in a situation where they're uncomfortable because we want them to succeed. Yeah. So we are going to give them all the tools to help them succeed. The need for drivers is so great. It's just, there's a lot that people have to go through to get it. But once you do it, it's so rewarding. Once you get that CDL, it is so rewarding.
It was one of the greatest things that ever happened to me. And I remember being at the testing place and passing and calling my trainer teary-eyed, because this is the thing. If someone in the US is thinking, oh no, it's so hard, I can't do this. Okay, consider this. An often bamboozled Australian woman arrives in the US. She often doesn't have a clue about what's going on. She is nicknamed Lucy Ricardo by her husband because all manner of things happen. So my point to explaining that is, if coming from Australia, where we drive on the left-hand side of the road and our steering wheel is on the right, if I can come over and within a matter of months be driving this 30-foot bus around town, then you can do it as well. Now, I wasn't the most academic person. I wasn't, the sharpest tool in the shed, but the training is so much fun. It's a small group. You're not there with 50 other people.
Right.
And two things. I realized Facebook told me today that it was 4 years today since I got my temps for bus driving, my CDL temp. I know. So this is quite a coincidence. And secondly, you're right, because I did get a bit of fear when I started with, oh my God, how am I going to do this? But it was drilled into me. They will never let you out on the road unless they think you are absolutely qualified and you have all the knowledge and the tools. Yes. And then once you're qualified, you will have like a buddy maybe who's there. Yes. And what I found with you guys at Lebanon, and God love you, you're like a mother. Sometimes I used to think you mollycoddled us too much because you're too nice. But you get the results that you need. Sometimes I thought, Lori needs to tell me to suck it up and get back out there when I was, going a bit mental. But I love the training process. With my training, it was 6 weeks. That's a long time. It was 6 weeks. It was fun. And I got to know that bus inside out. And I actually really enjoyed the challenge. Not that it was so much challenging, but I loved being in this midlife phase of life and achieving something totally new. That made me feel really good about myself.
Yes. That's great. Yeah. Well, I mean, people just don't understand what a great job it is. There's so many benefits to it. It's so rewarding in so many ways other than monetarily. You're paid to watch the sunrise. It's incredible. You
Yeah.
know, it's just, it is such, there's so much flexibility also within it, you know, with having that break in the middle of the day if you want. So
And this
that's the
is
thing. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, when I started, my ideal was to fit in with my schedule, 2 hours in the
Mhm.
morning and 2 hours in the afternoon. So I know there are drivers doing 8 hours a day. There are some doing
Mhm.
six. I did
Right.
four, and that really suited me. So I think there's maybe a misconception that everyone has to do the same thing all the time.
Mhm.
Can you
Right.
explain the flexible nature in relation to hours and also the field trips and what they're about?
Well, we have different route. We have some 6 tier routes, which are 3 routes in the morning, 3 routes in the afternoon. We have a few of those. We have majority 4 trip routes, which is two, like a high school or junior high, and then an elementary in the morning and the same in the afternoon. But we also have some 2 trip routes, which is just an elementary in the morning and an elementary in the afternoon. And that, you know, we have drivers that have more seniority and could pick a bigger route, but they don't want that. They want a smaller route. They don't want to come in at, you know, 5:30 or 6 o'clock in the morning. They'd rather come in at 7 and work till 9. So there is lots of flexibility with that. You can, you know, we've got drivers that choose just to be subs. They don't want to work on. We have one driver, Jacob. He's our super sub, and he doesn't work on Fridays. He does, you know, he's fluent in Spanish, and he does a lot of interpretation and works a lot for his church and stuff. So he chooses not to work on Fridays. So he chooses not to take a permanent route. So there are lots of options. You know, you as a sub, you don't have to, you know, you tell us when you're going to work.
Mm-hmm.
We don't tell you. Now, if you take a route, then, you know, you are expected to be here to drive that route. But, you know, we have attendance bonuses. You get sick days, you get personal days, you get insurance if you want it, you get paid snow days, which was, when I became a driver, was my absolute favorite. I'll never forget my first snow day. I was out sled riding with my kids. It was amazing. So, but when I started, my kids were in third grade and fifth grade, and they loved me driving a bus until they got to junior high, and then they said, "Don't come near me, Mom, with your bus." So, but yeah, there's so much more to it than people ever realize. We just increased the sub rate to $21. Then there's also the field trips. There's tons of field trips that are easy peasy. I mean, you
Mm-hmm.
take the kids somewhere, you drop them off, and you watch the games if you want, and you're paid the entire time. And so they've just changed it in our district where the field trip pay is your route pay. So once you get contracted, then your pay goes up from the 21. I think step 0 is 21.86 this year. So, you know, depending on where you're at will be what you would make. If you're contracted, you go on spread pay,
Mm-hmm.
where your pay, you don't receive all of it, you know, like the next after 2 weeks. They'll spread it out, so you're paid all summer long. As a sub, you know, you're an at-will employee, so you are paid. Your pay isn't spread out. It is, you know, you get all of it like on your next paycheck, everything that you've
Yeah.
worked.
Yeah. So the thing is, one common theme throughout this is the flexibility that the job does offer.
Mhm.
And I was a sub before I was contracted. And look, I didn't really know the area of the town that we live in at all, but I survived, which makes it even better for longer term residents and
Mhm.
locals of Lebanon because you know this area. So it's actually quite easy to get around. You've got your route sheet, you know where you're going.
Mhm.
It is absolutely doable. And I love the fact that for those who, like that gentleman who can't commit to a Friday, with being a sub, and I know you need subs as well, and you're happy
Yes.
to invite subs in, you
Yes.
do have that flexibility to pick and choose. Or are people able to drive just for field trips?
Oh, yes. Yes. We do have people that will only drive field trips. I have a sub that, he lets us know because if we have a lot of field trips that our drivers can't, our contracted drivers can't take because they'll go out, especially the high school athletics, they go out at like 2:45 or 3:15, and everyone is still out on their routes. So the drivers can't take their routes off to do field trips. So there is lots of opportunity, even if you just want to drive field trips, you still have to go through the whole process of getting licensed and all of that to do that. But it is, that is an option. And I actually met with the coaches last night to go over some new things. We've got a new software and a new trip software and stuff and routing software. So, but I encourage them to get, come let us train you, get your CDLs, because then you can drive your teams.
Yeah.
And get paid to drive them.
So this is just an aside, but a funny story. It just made me think of God, and I always laugh when I think about this because I was such an idiot. So I'm at the high school and I think I'm taking, that's you. I was taking a wrestling team to maybe even into Kentucky or somewhere. I was going somewhere and I'm parked there at the high school and this woman, a teacher, comes up to me and I thought she said, "Are you here for the Glee Club?" And I said, "What?" She goes, "Glee Club." And I said, "No, but I absolutely love that show. I really wish I could be the driver for Glee Club." And she goes, "What?" I said, "Glee." She goes, "No, ski. Ski Club." And that's one of those moments in my head where I just thought, shut up now, just stop talking. But I was thinking, oh my God, imagine if I got to drive a Glee Club and we could all sing on the way to which it was just one of those things, there were several of those occasions, but which leads me into the fact that with bus driving, you can make it your own. So especially if you are a contracted driver, you really get to know the people you are driving. Do you have any stories or anything to share about how people have made it just a reflection of who they are?
Well, when I started in Lakota. That's where I lived at the time. And so I loved it. I loved getting to know my kids. I loved having fun with the kids. The biggest thing is just talking to the kids, telling them your expectations. My big thing with the little kids, I would always tell them, the seats, the buses don't have seat belts, but the seats are designed to protect you. So I always made the comparison of an egg and an egg carton. And I would tell them, what would happen to an egg if it was not in its carton and it got bumped? It would get cracked. It would get broken. I said, that's right. And you guys are my little eggs, and I don't want you to get cracked. So you have to be in that seat. That seat is designed to protect you, but you can't be hanging out of it. You have to be in it. That is what's going to keep you safe. And I think when kids understand why they have to do something a certain way, why they can't eat on the bus, because if you start choking, I have to find a place to pull over to be able to help you. And it might be too late. So, it's when they understand why there are rules or what, the reasons for the rules, you're more apt to get them to respect it and follow it. And the thing is, if you respect your kids, they're going to respect you back. Get to know them, get to know their names. And I mean, I would have, I always did Dumb Joke Friday with my kids. And when I was driving, and I would just come up with a dumb joke every Friday, and they loved it. As a matter of fact, I had a student that I always did it in the mornings. Like when I got to the junior high, before we would let out, I would tell them the dumb joke. And I had a boy that found out that I was doing that in the morning, and he only wrote in the afternoon. And he's like, "Can you tell the joke in the afternoon instead of the morning?" And so, that made me realize that they enjoy that. They enjoy, those types of things. I would always do, after spring break, I would do a thing with the kids that, whoever knows the most about me by the end of the year, will win a gift card of their choice. So it was so cute because I had kids that were writing down questions because they're like, well, if I ask you, that person's going to hear and they're going to know and they're going to get the answer. And I said, okay, if you want to write down questions, I will answer them. And, but I said, there are certain questions I will not answer. So, understand that. But I had the first year I did it, I had to give 2 gift cards because the 2 of them worked so hard, and the girl ended up with the most, knew 201 things about me. I mean, the things that she came up with, the question, I was like, it was impressive. And then the boy had like 190. So I gave him like, not as much of a gift card, but I did give him a gift card too, because he worked so hard to learn. But it was funny because that boy ended up in the front seat because he was bad.
Yeah.
But I got to know him, and we built a relationship, and it really does. It makes a difference. And some of these kids, it's kind of sad because some of these kids in any district, but in our district in particular, they might not, have dinner when they go home, or they might go home to a parent not being there, no one being there. So, we're the first thing that they see with the district and the last thing during the day. So, the driver can do so much to make it a great start to the day, or take a bad day and turn it around and make it not so bad.
Yeah. Now you're making me teary because I'm just remembering. I'm remembering all the good times. But you're right. A lot of them really rely on us for connection. And it's funny how we come to build relationships with these children. And for me, I loved the fact that I was able to carry over the love of nurturing kids, because my girls had grown up. One at the time was living here in the US, but she's now gone back to Australia, and the other one was already in Australia. So I really missed the opportunity to connect. I had, for the listeners, I had 2 years. No, I had 1 year of driving the elementary kids in my own neighborhood here. And it was the best experience of my life. And you're right with the kids who may have some behavioral issues, because I too brought those kids up the front. And what I realized was that what turned them around was I gave them a job. They had connection, they had purpose, they had a feeling of belonging, and their personalities and their behaviors just totally changed.
Yes.
And they really became, and they both live in this neighborhood, and they just touched my heart, something chronic. And it's funny because one boy, I made him into railroad monitor, because I remember, see, it's all about American television and what I saw growing up. I remember Bobby Brady being the hall monitor. So I thought, okay, boy who lives around the corner, you're going to be railroad monitor, because he was a bit vocal and he had lots of energy, and he was just one of those boys. And I actually ordered a badge that said safety monitor or something like that, and for him, and it got delivered to his house, and his mum loved that. And so we would come to the railroad track, and he would turn around in his chair and say, quiet, please, railroad. And then he had to tell on all the kids that were talking. And I didn't care, because they're not supposed to talk. Everyone has to be quiet so I can hear and listen and make sure we're safe. And they knew the drill. So if he said their name, it's like, well, sorry, keep your mouth shut and we won't have this problem. But it was good. And then another girl I gave a job to as well. And they just grew from that experience. I had, just a couple of days ago, I had one of the boys on the bus knocking on the door because his older brother looks after our dogs when we're away. And they wanted to play with the dogs, and we're sitting out the back, and he goes, Mrs. Bobby, are you driving our bus this year? And oh my God, Lori, that's a dagger to the heart. And I said, oh, Elliot, no, I'm sorry. And he's going, you just were such a good bus driver. And look, I just made it. I made it a good experience for us all. I couldn't have made it a great experience for them if it wasn't a good experience for me. And I think one of the best ways to come at it was I was scared stiff before I started. And then a friend of mine in the neighborhood said, you know what? Sometimes when I get too focused on myself, I remember that I'm being of service. So if you come from
Mhm.
a place of being of service, that will do
Yes.
the trick. And she turned my whole perspective on bus driving around, because I thought, hey, okay, yes, I might sometimes be a couple of minutes late, or I might have to pull over if there's an issue I need to address on the
Yeah.
bus, or I might take the wrong street. But at the
Right.
end of the day, these parents and this community relies on us. Sometimes they can't drive themselves, they're at work. They rely on you to get their kids to school in a safe manner. It doesn't
Right.
matter if you're a couple of minutes late, you've got so much support, be of service. And that really turned the whole issue of concentrating on my own fear into something else.
Right. Right.
Yeah, just made
Well,
such a
and
difference.
we have a unique opportunity here in our district, because I don't know of any other district that allows their students or their children to ride with them. If our drivers or bus monitors and aides, if their student is enrolled in the district, um, and is one a Lebanon City School student, they are permitted to bring their kids with them to work and let them ride on the bus with them. And it has done an amazing thing for, I would lose several drivers if that changed, because they might not be able to afford daycare, and so this allows them to bring them along. And then a lot of times they'll pick a route that goes to the school that their child goes to, so that they can ride along with them on their route. And it really has worked out well. I mean, we've got a system down where there's a spot in the back where they pull up to pick their student up, and there's a little waiting area in the back hallway for the students to, sit and wait for their parent to go out and pre-trip the bus, and then bring it down to where they can go out and safely board the bus. But it has really made a difference for, several of my drivers. Because when I first came here, I'm like, they do what? I was
Yeah.
shocked, but as I had been here longer, I see the benefit to it.
Yeah.
And it really does benefit a lot of parents in that aspect.
Yeah, I think that's so good for, as you said, the parents who may not be able to, for one reason or another, find alternate care for their
Right.
kids. And can I just mention, Lebanon is what I know. A shout out to the family of bus drivers that you have at Lebanon, because if there are three words that I would use to describe my experience with you and the other drivers, it would be connection, belonging, and purpose. It really filled those three needs. It's like a big family that you have
Yes.
there. I'm still, in fact, I saw Gloria the other day, and I saw Dave, and I am friends with a lot of them on Facebook. And it really, for me, I didn't have a large extended family here that I'm so used to back home in Australia. So
Yes.
you guys became my family. And what I loved about it, it's very salt of the earth, grounded people, very
Mhm.
kind, very caring, very supportive. And then it's easy to embrace that family mentality when you go to work.
Mhm. Well, and that's one thing that our drivers are excellent at helping out, especially new drivers. If they've made a wrong turn, or they're lost, or they're running behind, which is very common when you're new, you are
Yeah.
going to run behind.
Yeah.
And that's okay, because your goal is just to get the kids to school safe. If they're a little bit late, it's, we can live with that.
Yeah.
So, but if you make a wrong turn or you're running late, the drivers they're listening on the radio, and they're always willing to jump in and help. Oh, I can stop and get this pickup for you. Or, you need to go down here and turn around. And it is a family. It
It
is a
is.
family. And, I mean, we've got a great group of drivers here. We do lots of fun stuff. We're always trying to do carry-ins and chili cook-offs, and just all kinds of fun things. I've instituted like 2 employee of the month parking spaces up front. So that is the employees actually nominate their coworkers
Yeah.
So it's not me picking, it's the
Oh,
employees that, and what I want is I want to hear good things. I want to hear, what other drivers are doing for each other. And that has brought that out. And so I do a weekly or a monthly newsletter and then a weekly Monday memos.
yeah.
And I'm able to do shout outs to people and the things I hear. And then we also started like 2 parking spaces up front, because that's a big thing. Everyone
It
wants to
is.
park up front. So it's just our nature, I guess.
I know.
But I did like exceptional attendance parking spaces. So every month, if the drivers had perfect attendance, then their name goes into the pool for us to pull, and we pull 2 names every month of somebody that's had perfect attendance the month before, and then they get that parking spot, up front parking spot for the month. But by doing it by the month,
Yeah.
it really helps, because you might have somebody that doesn't normally get perfect attendance bonuses and things like that, but they got perfect attendance, and then they have a chance to, and they get the parking spot, and then they think, wow, it just does something to encourage them,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
when they don't ever get the acknowledgement, then it's I don't know, it's just all about encouraging people, I
Yeah, and
think.
you know what? And this really leads beautifully into the fact that life is what you make it.
Mhm.
Life and how you choose to experience it begins and ends with self. So that is absolutely true when it comes to this job. If someone views life more as something that's difficult, depressing, and the world is a sorry state of affairs, then that's how you probably experience bus driving. But if you look at it as something that you can make it your own, that you
Mhm.
are surrounded by an extraordinary support network of people that
Mhm.
do become your
Mhm.
extended family and your close friends, that you are giving back to your community and you
Yes.
are able to help nurture children for
Mhm.
that nearly hour in the morning, an hour in the afternoon, you are having a great impact on their lives. So it's all about perception, but there is so much more than what is often talked about in relation to bus driving. So I am going to put the links if someone's interested in
Mhm.
contacting you or contacting transportation. I'll put all the links at the bottom of this
Okay.
podcast description where they can maybe fill out an application form, get in contact
Yes.
to have some questions answered, and we will go from there. Is there anything else that I haven't covered today, Lori, that you'd like to say before we go?
Um, well, one thing that we started doing when we interview someone is Kim, my assistant, she will take them out and let them drive the bus around the parking lot.
Perfect.
And it really has been a great thing, because they think, I've even had people that have applied to be an aide because they're thinking, I can't be a bus driver, and I'm like, let's go, go drive the bus. If we're in the back parking lot, it's not a problem.
Yeah.
um we pull it out of the parking spot and everything, and then they realize, well, maybe I can do this.
Yeah.
So that's something too, that people, if you think that there's no way you could do it, apply. If it's something that you're interested in, that you think you might want to do, apply. Come
Yeah.
down. We'll let you drive the bus around the parking lot at your
Yes.
interview.
And I forgot
Um,
to just mention how much fun driving these things are. This, for me, all the buttons and the levers and everything and the flashing lights, it really
yeah,
it
yeah,
really appeals to someone with squirrel mentality. So I loved it.
yeah,
It
yeah,
was fun.
yeah.
It was fun.
So yeah, it's there's more to it than what anybody could ever imagine, in a good way.
Yeah. Yes.
It can be, it can be taxing to get your license originally,
Yeah.
but it's just like anything else. It's worth the hard work is worth the reward,
Yeah,
because it
absolutely.
is. I mean, I'll never forget my first paycheck when I became a bus driver. I was getting ready for work and I was giddy, because I'm like, I'm getting paid today for something I've had so much fun doing.
Yeah.
And nobody, because I sold wedding advertising,
Mhm.
I was in sales, and I would run into people that they're like, you're doing what? I said, let me just tell you, it's the best job in the world. You know, I know somebody else that's a bus driver and they say the same thing. What is it? I said, you cannot understand it until you do it.
Yeah.
You can't understand it until you do it.
And for locals, you can't understand how beautiful this town is until you are driving around as the sun is rising or setting. You get to witness all the seasons of the years. You see fields, you see deer. We've got those alpacas up the road. There are just so many things. And because what I found, and I'm probably going over our time limit here, but anyway, there's no limit. I just said 30 minutes, but it's going to be longer than that because I just wanted to mention what I found. You have these massive windows that you're looking out of. There are windows, obviously, all down the side of the bus. Driving, we're concentrating what's ahead of us, but there is so much beauty. So it becomes habitual to feel this appreciation and gratitude about where you live. It is just stunning. It's like being in an IMAX theater and someone has filmed just the beautiful locations. And I know there'll be some listening to this thinking, oh my God, is this Lebanon? Well, I'm sorry. I come from one of the most beautiful cities in the world, Sydney, and you have a gorgeous, gorgeous town here. And there is so much to see as a bus driver if we are open to witnessing its beauty. So to that, I wanted to say thank you so much for joining me today and letting us know just what the benefits are, not only, working with Lebanon, but also for people who aren't from this area who are listening and thinking, you know what, I might contact my local school transportation department and just suss out what's happening in our area. I think it's really beneficial. Bus drivers are needed all over this country. And I do hope this conversation today has served in the sense that it will allow people to see the job from a different perspective.
Right. Well, I appreciate you inviting me to do this. And I hope it does. I hope it does perk someone's interest or a few people's interest to check it out. And because it is it's also an excellent retirement job. I have lots of men that have retired from, a business or a company and they come and they drive and they absolutely love it. So it's, it is a fabulous, fabulous empty nester job, retirement job, or mom. If you're a mom, because you're off when your kids are off.
Yeah. And God, how many jobs?
It doesn't get any better than that.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, thank you, Lori. And to all our listeners, thank you so much for joining us today. And we will see you next time on Fly Mum Fly.
From empty nest to personal best, let's fly, Mom, fly.